At 7:18 p.m. on September 14th, I stood beside table 19 at my sister's wedding reception, holding a champagne glass I had not taken a single sip from, while 126 guests watched my mother raise a microphone and call me selfish. The ballroom at Lakewood Manor glittered like something from a bridal magazine. White roses hung from the ceiling in long, expensive ropes. Gold candles flickered across every table. A 7-tier cake sat under a crystal chandelier, with sugar flowers so delicate they looked real from 10 feet away. And every inch of it had been paid for with money stolen from my trust fund. My sister, Betrayal, sat at the sweetheart table in a pearl-covered gown that cost more than my first car. She smiled with that soft, injured expression she had perfected since childhood, the one that made everyone lean toward her and ask what was wrong. My mother stood in the middle of the dance floor, wearing champagne silk and righteous anger. "She tried to ruin this wedding," she said into the microphone. A low murmur rolled through the room. My father stared down into his drink. My aunt covered her mouth. My cousin Madison looked at me like she was waiting for me to start screaming so everyone could say I proved them right. I didn't move. My mother kept going. "Some people cannot stand to see their family happy unless they are the center of attention." Betrayal lowered her eyes. Her new husband, Colin, put one protective hand over hers. And then my mother said the sentence that finally emptied something inside me. "Claire has always been jealous of her sister. Tonight, she needs to apologize for trying to take back money that was used for love." Money used for love. That was what she called it. Not my grandmother's inheritance. Not the trust created in my name. Not the $92,600 transferred out through forged approval forms, fake vendor invoices, and one signature that looked enough like mine to fool a bank employee for exactly 3 weeks. Love. The room went silent in that strange way a room goes silent when people want drama but don't want to admit they are enjoying it. My hand tightened around the champagne flute. For 1 second, I saw my grandmother's hands instead of mine. Thin, warm, covered in blue veins, folding mine around a silver locket when I was 17. "This is not just money, Claire," she had whispered. "This is a door. Promise me you will walk through it." My mother had stolen the key to that door and used it to buy imported orchids. Then, from the back of the ballroom, a chair scraped against the marble floor. Everyone turned. A man in a dark navy suit stood near the dessert table, one hand resting calmly on a leather folder. He was not family. He was not a guest anyone had expected to speak. His name was Daniel Pierce. He was my grandmother's estate lawyer. My sister's smile faltered. My mother stopped breathing for half a second. Daniel buttoned his jacket, stepped into the aisle between the tables, and said in a voice quiet enough to make the whole room lean in, "Mrs. Harlow, before Claire apologizes, I believe the guests deserve to hear the recording you consented to last Tuesday." Betrayal's fork slipped from her hand and hit the plate. The sound was tiny, but in that ballroom it rang like a bell. And that was when my family realized I had not come to the wedding to beg. I had come with receipts, too. Before everything broke. My name is Claire Harlow. I was 29 when this happened, and until that autumn, I still believed there was some combination of patience, achievement, and silence that would finally make my family love me correctly. That sounds pathetic when I say it out loud now. But when you grow up in a house where affection is handed out like a prize, you become very good at competing for crumbs. I worked as a pediatric occupational therapist at a small rehabilitation clinic outside Bristol, Connecticut. I spent most of my days helping children relearn how to hold pencils, tie shoes, button coats, grip spoons, and trust their own bodies again. I loved my work, even when it exhausted me. Especially then. My dream was simple. I wanted to open a sensory therapy center for children whose parents could not afford private care. My grandmother Eloise knew that dream before anyone else did. She was my father's mother, but she never acted like love had to pass through him first. She showed up at my school plays even when I had one line. She saved my drawings. She remembered I hated coconut and loved lemon cake. When I was accepted into graduate school, she cried harder than I did. 2 years before she died, she created a trust for me. It was not enormous by billionaire standards, but to me it was life-changing. $310,000 protected for education, housing, medical emergencies, and business creation. My grandmother had watched my parents drain every account they touched, usually to rescue Betrayal from consequences. So she made the trust strict. My mother hated that. She thinks we're criminals, she said after the will reading, standing in the parking lot of the attorney's office with her arms folded tight. My father said nothing. Brielle cried because Grandma had left her jewelry instead of cash. I stood there holding a copy of the trust documents with shaking hands, not because of the money, but because someone had finally protected me in writing. My grandmother had seen me. That was what my family never forgave. Brielle was 26 then, 3 years younger than me, and she had been the center of our family since the day she was born. She was beautiful in an effortless, expensive way, with honey blonde hair, wide blue eyes, and the ability to make irresponsibility look delicate. When she wrecked my mother's car at 19, everyone said she had been under stress. When I got a B+ in chemistry at 16, my mother didn't speak to me for 2 days because standards matter. When Brielle dropped out of college after 1 semester, my father said college was not for everyone. When I took out loans for graduate school because my parents had cash flow issues, my mother told relatives I was independent by choice. Every family has a rhythm. Ours was simple. Brielle needed. I adjusted. My mother controlled. My father disappeared behind silence. And I kept thinking if I became useful enough, calm enough, successful enough, they would look at me and realize I had been there the whole time. Before everything broke, I still answered every call. I still showed up for birthdays. I still brought soup when my mother had the flu. I still sent Brielle job listings when she said nobody believed in her. I still believed being good would eventually matter. That was my first mistake. Because in my family, goodness was not valued. Excess was. And the trust fund made me valuable in a way that love never had. 3. The family favorite. The first time I understood Brielle was the favorite I was 8. I had won a school reading award. A little blue certificate with my name printed crookedly across the top. I carried it home in both hands so it would not bend. When I walked into the kitchen, my mother was taping one of Brielle's finger paintings to the refrigerator. Brielle had painted a purple horse with 6 legs. I waited until my mother finished smoothing the tape. I got an award, I said. She glanced over. That's nice, Claire. Put it on the counter. I did. For 3 days, my certificate sat under a grocery list and a coffee mug stain. Brielle's horse stayed on the fridge for 2 months. That was our house in one image. Brielle's mess became art. My accomplishments became clutter. As we got older, the favoritism grew teeth. If Brielle yelled, she was overwhelmed. If I cried, I was dramatic. If Brielle borrowed money, she was struggling. If I asked to be repaid, I was cold. My mother treated family like a courtroom where she was judge, jury, and victim. Her highest law was image. We had to look close. We had to look generous. We had to look successful. Truth mattered only if it photographed well. My father, Thomas, had perfected the art of not noticing. He was not cruel in the loud way my mother was. He never slammed doors or called me names. He just stood there while it happened. Sometimes that felt worse. When my mother said, "Claire, don't make this difficult," my father looked away. When Brielle took my clothes without asking, he said, "Let it go." When I was 17 and got accepted into a summer medical program I could not afford, he promised to talk to my mother. He never did. That same month, they paid for Brielle to attend a dance camp she quit after 4 days because the instructor had negative energy. At Sunday dinners, my mother kept a framed photo of Brielle's pageant crown on the mantel. My master's degree was still in the cardboard tube because she said the wall looked too busy. But nobody outside saw that. Outside, my mother was warm. She volunteered. She posted family pictures. She wrote captions like, "My girls are my world." She knew exactly how to perform motherhood for an audience. I learned to doubt my own pain because everyone else seemed to believe her performance. Brielle learned something else. She learned that if she wanted something badly enough, the whole family would rearrange itself around her want. When she got engaged to Colin Prescott, the rearranging became a full renovation. Colin came from money. Not quiet money. Loud money. Country club money. His mother wore pearls to casual lunches and once asked me whether occupational therapy was more like babysitting or nursing. Brielle wanted a wedding that would prove she belonged in that world. Not a nice wedding. A statement. Lakewood Manor. Imported flowers. A custom gown. A string quartet. A cigar bar for Colin's friends. A champagne tower. A videographer who charged by the emotional angle. At the first family planning dinner, Brielle spread glossy brochures across my parents' dining table like a general planning a war. "I only get one wedding," she said. I looked at the estimated total and felt my stomach tighten. "Brielle," I said carefully, "this is almost $90,000. She blinked at me. "And?" My mother shot me a warning look. I tried again. "I'm just saying that's a lot. Maybe you can choose what matters most." "What matters most," my mother said, "is that your sister not be embarrassed in front of Colin's family." There it was. Embarrassment. The family god. Colin's parents had offered to cover the rehearsal dinner and honeymoon. My parents had promised the rest, partly out of pride, partly because my mother could not bear the idea of looking smaller than the Prescotts. But promises are easy when someone else's money is nearby. That night, as I cleared plates because somehow I always cleared plates, I heard my mother and Brielle whispering in the hallway. "She has that trust," Brielle said. My mother answered, "Lower your voice. She doesn't even use it." "She will." "For what?" "Some little clinic for sticky children." I froze with a stack of dessert plates in my hands. My mother did not correct her. She only said, "Your grandmother made things difficult." Brielle laughed softly, and that laugh stayed with me longer than the insult, because it told me they had already started thinking of my future as available inventory. 4. The betrayal. The first direct request came on a rainy Thursday in March. My mother invited me to lunch at a restaurant she only chose when she wanted something. She wore red lipstick and ordered sparkling water. She complimented my hair, which was how I knew the conversation would cost me. Halfway through her salad, she folded her hands. "Claire, your sister is in a difficult position." I stared at my soup. "Is she sick?" "No." "Don't be dramatic." "Then what's wrong?" "The wedding costs are higher than expected." I almost laughed, but her face was serious. "So she needs to cut back," I said. My mother's mouth tightened. That is exactly the kind of cold response I was afraid of. There it was again. Cold. A word she used whenever I had boundaries. She leaned closer. "You have money sitting in an account." "No," I said. "I have a trust for specific purposes." "Family is a purpose." "That's not how it works." "Don't hide behind legal language." I set down my spoon. "Grandma left that money for my education, my home, and my clinic." My mother's eyes hardened at the word grandma. "Your grandmother used money to divide this family." "No. She used it to protect me." The silence that followed was sharp. Then my mother said very softly, "From us." I should have stopped there. I should have paid for my soup and left. Instead, I tried to explain. That was another mistake. In toxic families, explanation is just rope they use to pull you back into the argument. I told her the trust had rules. I told her distributions had to be approved. I told her I was saving to lease a small building near the children's hospital. I told her I had spent 5 years building a business plan. My mother listened like a person waiting for bad weather to pass. When I finished, she dabbed her mouth with a napkin. "Your sister has always supported you." That was so untrue I could not answer. "She needs you once," my mother said. "And you turn your back." "I'm not turning my back. I'm saying no to using grandma's money for centerpieces." Her face changed. Just a little. "Enough. You always thought you were better than us because she chose you." My throat tightened. "She chose me because she knew you would do this." My mother stood so quickly her chair scraped backward. Then she said the unforgettable sentence that became the beginning of the end. "It was family money until you got greedy." I watched her leave the restaurant without paying. For 2 weeks no one called me. Then Brielle texted a photo of her wedding invitation mock-up in the family group chat and wrote, "Trying to stay positive even though some people have made this process really painful." My aunt replied with heart emojis. My cousin wrote, "Ignore negativity, bride girl." My mother added, "Some people show their character when asked to sacrifice." I typed 3 different responses and deleted them all. Then I got the bank alert. A distribution request had been submitted from the Harlow Family Trust. Amount: $48,000. Purpose: business lease deposit. Vendor: Lakewood Events Group. For a few seconds I could not understand what I was seeing. My brain tried to rearrange the words into something less horrifying. Business lease deposit. Lakewood Events Group. That was Brielle's wedding venue. My hand went numb around my phone. I called the bank. I called the trust administrator. I called my father. He did not answer. I called my mother. She picked up on the fourth ring. What did you do? I asked. She sighed like I was a child making noise in church. Claire, not now. You submitted a trust distribution. You were being unreasonable. That is my money. It is your family. You forged documents. Don't use ugly words. My voice cracked. Mom, that money was for my clinic. And your sister's wedding is in 6 months, she snapped. You have time to earn more. I stood in my apartment kitchen, staring at the little corkboard where I had pinned a photo of the empty storefront I wanted to rent. Sunlight came through the window and landed right on it. You stole from me, I whispered. No, she said. I corrected your priorities. 5. The moment I stopped begging. I wish I could say I became strong immediately. I didn't. First I panicked. I spent the next 48 hours calling everyone connected to the trust. I learned the first transfer had already cleared. Then I learned there were more requests pending. $18,400 for floral installations. $11,700 for custom lighting. $14,500 for catering deposit adjustment. All disguised as business expenses, consultation retainers, accessibility modifications, and therapeutic event programming. Someone had studied my clinic proposal closely enough to steal its language. That hurt in a different way. It meant this was not impulsive. It was planned. I drove to my parents' house on Sunday afternoon because I still believed looking someone in the eye could reach the part of them that texts and phone calls could not. Brielle was there, sitting at the kitchen island with her laptop open, comparing napkin colors. My mother stood beside her. My father was in the living room pretending to watch golf. I placed copies of the bank notices on the counter. Fix it, I said. Brielle glanced at the papers and rolled her eyes. You're being so intense. You stole almost $100,000. My mother slapped her palm on the counter. Do not speak to your sister like that. I looked at Brielle. Did you know? She looked at my mother, then back at me. That was my answer. Claire, she said, using the soft voice she saved for audiences, I was going to pay you back. With what job? Her face flushed. My mother stepped between us. Enough. No, I said. Not enough. This is fraud. My father appeared in the doorway then. Finally. He looked older than I remembered. Or maybe I was seeing him clearly for the first time. Dad, I said. Tell them this is wrong. He rubbed the back of his neck. Your mother said it was temporary. I stared at him. Temporary. As if theft became kindness when you plan to return it someday. I need that money for the clinic lease, I said. The deadline is May 1st. Brielle groaned. There it is. Your clinic. Always your clinic. My future, I said. You mean my future? You don't even have kids, she snapped. Why are you so obsessed with other people's? The room went quiet. That was the first gut punch. Not because she insulted my work. Because nobody corrected her. My mother picked up the bank papers and pushed them back toward me. You will not ruin your sister's wedding over this. I'm going to report it. My father's face changed. Fear. Not for me. For himself. Claire, he said. Think carefully. I have. No, my mother said. You are angry. You always get like this when Brielle has something. Something. I laughed once and it came out broken. She has my money. Brielle stood, tears filling her eyes, right on schedule. Why do you hate me so much? I closed my eyes. There it was. The trapdoor. The moment where the conversation stopped being about what she had done and became about how badly I had reacted to it. I don't hate you, I said. I just want back what you took. My mother walked to the front door and opened it. Leave. I looked at my father. He looked down. That was the second gut punch. Not the yelling. The silence. I drove home with my chest aching so badly, I had to pull into a gas station and sit with my forehead against the steering wheel. Rain tapped lightly on the windshield. My phone kept buzzing. The family group chat had exploded. My mother wrote, Claire came to the house threatening legal action over wedding help we all agreed was temporary. All agreed, my aunt replied. This is not how family behaves. A cousin wrote, money changes people. Brielle posted a crying selfie to her private Instagram story with the caption, choosing peace while others choose greed. By Monday morning, relatives I had not spoken to in years were messaging me. Be the bigger person. Your grandmother would be ashamed. It's one day for your sister. One day. They kept saying that. As if the wedding would last one day. As if debt did not follow you home. As if the clinic I had dreamed about since 22 could be postponed like a dentist appointment. Then my landlord called about renewing my apartment lease. My clinic broker emailed to say the storefront owner had another interested tenant. My bank account looked suddenly small. Every plan I had built became a hallway with locked doors. At work, a little boy named Mateo cried because he could not zip his jacket. I knelt beside him and showed him again. Thumb here. Pinch. Pull. Try. Breathe. When he finally got it, he looked at me like I had handed him the moon. I went into the supply closet afterward and cried into a stack of therapy mats. That was the moment I almost broke. Not in my parents' kitchen. Not in the group chat. In the quiet after helping a child do something hard while knowing my own family had made my dream harder for no reason except Brielle wanted better flowers. That evening Brielle called me. I let it ring. Then she texted. Mom says you're still invited, but please don't bring drama. A minute later. Also Colin's family thinks you're unstable now, so maybe just be normal. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Then something inside me went very still. I stopped typing explanations. I stopped defending myself in the group chat. I stopped begging my father to call me back. By the time they realized I had gone quiet, I had already started preparing. 6. What they didn't know. What my family did not know was that my grandmother had not only left me money, she had left me instructions. In the back of my trust binder, tucked behind the formal documents, there was a handwritten note in her careful slanted script. If anyone pressures you to use this money for them, call Daniel Pierce before you answer. I had read that sentence years earlier and thought it was dramatic. Now I understood it was experience. Daniel Pierce was not flashy. He had a narrow office above a bookstore, wire-framed glasses, and the calmest voice I had ever heard. When I called him, I expected disappointment. Maybe even a lecture about not protecting the account better. Instead, he said, bring everything. So I did. Bank alerts. Texts. Screenshots. The family group chat. The clinic proposal. The distribution forms. Vendor names. My mother's messages. Brielle's Instagram story. Daniel spread everything across his conference table in neat rows. He read quietly for nearly an hour while I sat across from him twisting the strap of my purse until my fingers hurt. Finally he looked up. Claire, he said. These requests were not merely improper. They appear fraudulent. Hearing the word from him changed something. Fraud. The ugly word my mother told me not to use. He showed me the trust clause my grandmother had insisted on. Any distribution over $10,000 required not only my authorization, but independent review if the request involved a business expense. My signature appeared on 3 forms. I had signed none of them. Daniel took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. Did your mother have access to samples of your signature? She has old-school documents. Medical forms. Everything. And your father? He signs whatever she puts in front of him. That was not a defense. It was a diagnosis. Daniel explained the steps. Freeze pending distributions. Notify the bank. Request internal review. Send preservation letters to the venue, florist, planner, and caterer. File a civil claim if repayment was not made. Consider criminal referral if necessary. The words sounded terrifying and clean, like opening windows in a house full of smoke. Then he asked me something I did not expect. Have they admitted knowledge of the transfers? On the phone. In person. But not in writing. He nodded slowly. Then we will invite them to resolve this privately. I almost laughed. They won't. No, he said. But they may talk. The meeting happened the following Tuesday at 10 a.m. in Daniel's office. My mother arrived wearing pearls, as if respectability could function as evidence. My father came behind her, pale and quiet. Brielle wore sunglasses indoors. Daniel began with one sentence. This meeting is being recorded for the file. Do all parties consent? My mother waved a hand. Fine. My father muttered. Yes. Brielle said. Whatever. Daniel placed the trust documents on the table. I am going to give everyone an opportunity to explain the distributions. My mother smiled thinly. We used family resources for a family event. Claire is being emotional. Daniel did not blink. Did Claire authorize the payments? She would have if she were not jealous. That was not my question. Brielle leaned forward. This is humiliating. My wedding is in 4 days. Daniel looked at her. The timing is a result of the transfers, not the review. My mother's smile cracked. For 40 minutes they talked. They contradicted each other. My father claimed he thought I knew. Brielle claimed she thought my mother had permission. My mother claimed the trust was morally hers because she had raised the beneficiary. Then Daniel asked, Mrs. Harlow, who signed Claire's authorization forms? My mother's jaw tightened. Nobody spoke. The office clock ticked. Finally Brielle whispered. Mom said it was fine. My mother snapped. Do not start. Daniel waited. And then my mother said it. She was never going to use that money properly. She was going to waste it on some charity clinic that would fail in a year. At least Brielle's wedding brought this family respect. I felt the words hit me, but I did not move. Daniel only asked, So you knowingly redirected the funds? My mother's face went white. That is not what I said. But it was. And the recorder had caught every word. The next day, Daniel sent formal notice demanding return of the funds and warning that the vendors had received money from disputed trust distributions. My mother ignored it. Brielle sent me one text. You wouldn't dare do anything before my wedding. I looked at that message for a long time. Then I replied with the only honest thing left. You never believed I would choose myself. She did not answer. The wedding was 3 days away, and I still had not decided whether to go. Then my mother made the decision for me. She left a voicemail at 11:42 p.m. You will attend. You will smile. And if anyone asks, you will say you gave your sister a gift. If you embarrass us, Claire, I promise you will regret it. I played the voicemail for Daniel the next morning. He listened once. Then he closed the file. I think, he said, your grandmother anticipated this family very well. 7. The reveal. The wedding ceremony was beautiful in the way expensive things are beautiful when nobody asks what they cost. Lakewood Manor had gardens that rolled down toward a small silver lake. White chairs lined the lawn. A harpist played under an arch covered in roses. Brielle walked down the aisle on my father's arm, smiling through a veil edged with tiny pearls. For a moment I almost forgot. Almost. Then I saw the flowers. Thousands of white orchids. My clinic money climbing the arch in perfect, fragrant loops. I sat in the third row beside my cousin Madison, who leaned over and whispered, It means a lot that you're being mature. I looked straight ahead. During the vows, Brielle cried. Colin cried. My mother cried hardest of all. My father looked like a man watching a train approach from very far away. Daniel arrived only for the reception. He had not wanted to attend. I had asked him to be nearby in case my family escalated. I still hoped they would not. That was the last small foolish hope I carried. At the reception, people drank champagne under gold lights. The band played jazz standards. Colin's father gave a polished toast about legacy and family. His mother complimented the taste level of the event. Brielle floated from table to table accepting praise like tribute. Then the speeches began. Colin's best man told a story about college. Brielle's maid of honor cried about friendship. My father stood and gave a short, trembling toast that said almost nothing. Then my mother took the microphone. First she talked about Brielle as a baby. How delicate she had been. How special. How the family had always known she deserved extraordinary things. I stared at the folded napkin in my lap. Then my mother turned. She looked straight at me. And I want to say something about family sacrifice. My stomach dropped. Daniel, standing near the back wall, lifted his head. My mother smiled at the guests. Weddings reveal who truly supports you. A few people murmured approval. Some people gave joyfully. Some people had to be reminded that family comes before selfish dreams. I felt heat crawl up my neck. Brielle's eyes widened, but she did not stop her. My mother continued, drunk on the room. My daughter Brielle handled this season with grace, even while being attacked by someone who should have loved her enough to help without making it ugly. People began turning toward me. Madison shifted away slightly, as if betrayal were contagious. My mother's voice sharpened. Claire, why don't you stand? The room went quiet. I stayed seated. Claire, she repeated, still smiling. Stand up, sweetheart. Sweetheart. That word in her mouth felt like a hand around my throat. I stood. The champagne flute trembled in my hand, so I set it down. My mother held the microphone out toward me. This is a good time to say what we discussed. That you gave your sister a generous wedding gift and regret the tension you caused. Brielle stared at the table. Colin looked confused. His mother looked fascinated. For 1 second, all I could hear was my pulse. I thought about every version of myself who would have obeyed just to make the room stop looking at me. 8-year-old me with the reading award. 17-year-old me losing the summer program. 29-year-old me in the supply closet crying into therapy mats. Then I heard my grandmother's voice. This is a door. Walk through it. I looked at my mother and said, no. The word was not loud, but it landed. My mother's smile stiffened. I'm sorry. No, I repeated. I won't lie for you. A ripple moved through the room. Brielle stood so fast her chair knocked back. Oh my God, Claire, not today. I looked at her. You chose today when you used my money to pay for it. The room went dead silent. Not quiet. Silent. The kind where forks stop halfway to mouths. My mother's face hardened. That is enough. But it was too late. Daniel was already walking forward. He did not rush. He moved with the calm precision of someone who had spent decades watching people destroy themselves with confidence. My mother saw him and lowered the microphone. Who invited him? I did, I said. Brielle turned to Colin. This is my grandmother's weird lawyer. Claire is obsessed with this. Daniel stopped beside me. Good evening, he said. His voice carried without effort. My name is Daniel Pierce. I represent the estate interests connected to the Eloise Harlow Trust, of which Claire Harlow is the primary beneficiary.